Hey everybody, welcome back. We are doing another movie review. That's right, we are reviewing a movie. As that's what I just said. This week I went and saw A Haunting in Venice, which is the third movie in a kind of loose trilogy based on the Agatha Christie novels Murder on the Orient Express, Death on the Nile, and now A Haunting in Venice. I do not know if those are the names of the books, but I suspect that they are, since I know that the first two are. So if I know the first two are, I guess it's reasonable to assume that the third one is as well. Anyways, hey, look, we're usually negative on this channel. We see a movie and it's a new one, and we go, "Wow, I mean that was pretty bad, right? That was pretty bad." Unless you're a Snyderverse fan, in which case we missed the whole point. You know what? The Snyderverse fans are right. I did miss the point. I forgot that movies are all about contrivance and characters not acting like they did in previous scenes. Anyways, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about A Haunting in Venice. And holy crap, I am so happy to have watched a movie in theaters recently, and the entire time in the film, I thought, this is pretty good. I like this. There are a few caveats to that. I always have a nose to pick with something. But overall, the film is just well presented, it's well told, it's well acted. And it's just a satisfying mystery to unwrap, as with the other two in the series. I think in large part, mystery movies, the whodunits, I think they're kind of easy movies to make, in the sense that people like mysteries, and I think that audiences like solving mysteries. And so when you're writing a whodunit, if you're writing it like any standard whodunit, as long as the acting isn't terrible and you can see what's going on and you can follow the plot progression of the story, most people are going to be entertained by it, because again, we just like mysteries naturally, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think A Haunting in Venice, as well as the other loose trilogy, which is what I'm going to keep calling those, the Death on the Nile and Murder on the Orient Express, I think these all have a certain style to them that's what I really want to talk about here today. So the first two movies in this loose trilogy are stylistically very similar, and I thought it was interesting that this movie delineates from that, both aesthetically and the actual, topics that are brought up. The actual plot is a lot different than the first two, even though it's all a murder mystery. The first two really utilize these long dolly shots, these long, open view fields. There's no shaky cam whatsoever. Everything is aesthetically pleasing, and it's more or less designed to reflect how Perot views the world, in that everything looks beautiful, but also more or less perfect. Everything's framed almost perfectly, if that makes sense. And I think that makes sense for the character, because again, the Hercule Poirot, or however you pronounce his name, is essentially me. He has OCD to the highest level imaginable, and it aids him in his day-to-day life. That's literally me. I'm literally him. I just need to change my mustache slightly. But in A Haunting in Venice, they actually go for a stylistically different take on this kind of loose trilogy. And I think this reflects the mindset that Hercule is in during this movie. So the first two movies take place in, I believe, 1936 and then 1937. I'm pretty sure I got those years right. And this movie takes place in 1947. And for any of you history buffs out there, you might know World War II happened during then. And even though Hercule fought in World War I, it's clear that World War II really affected him, as well as all of his cases that he's had in the intervening time. He starts out retired. He doesn't really have any plan for life. He doesn't have any vigor for life like he did in the first two movies. And it's just kind of interesting to see this defeated hero, but not in a similar light that, say, Indiana Jones was in Indiana Jones 5. He wasn't depressed and ready to die. He had seen a lot of shit, and he just wasn't ready to get back into seeing even more shit. But going back to the visual style that I want to talk about, What's so interesting is that they choose a lot of Dutch angles with the really wide lens, and I'm really hoping that I'm able to get some shots of that to show you exactly what I'm talking about. They are visually, like, first of all, it's beautiful, because I'm 95% sure that they shot this in Venice, or at least using Italian architecture as their background for a lot of the exterior shots. But they shoot it in such a way that it automatically, from, I believe, like the first shot, just tells you that you're in for something that is going to be off. You're in for something that is not going to feel like the other two movies. That paired with a really like top-notch color grade that again makes everything just look beautiful, and lighting that was harsh with really defined shadows. And if you've watched my Indiana Jones series, you know I love me some shadows. Just visually, this movie is really, really nice to look at. My only critique on that, and this is a personal thing, I don't like shaky cam. Jake disagrees with me on this, and that's fine. He can be wrong. I think there is a place for shaky cam, and they do use the shaky cam aesthetic well in this movie, because again, it goes to shaky cam whenever Hercule is being challenged on his belief that basically, there is no soul, there is no God, whatever. But we'll get into that in a little bit. When you're watching a film on IMAX, I've got something in my eye. When you're watching a film on IMAX and they do shaky cam, it's a bit much. It might not be too bad on like a TV or theoretically maybe even like a regular movie screen, but again, I went and saw it in IMAX and it was just a lot. Any sort of shake is jarring and it's hard to track what's going on. But again, they didn't use it all that much, and I understood the reason why they used it, so it didn't bother me. It wasn't super off-putting in that sense. But beyond the mystery aspect of this movie, there's something that I want to talk about with this entire Loose trilogy that I think it hits at like 80%. It doesn't go the full 100, and I don't think it's intending to do that, which is the character arc of Hercule Poirot over these three films, and possibly into the future, depending on if this movie does well at the box office, I'd assume. The first movie is all about challenging his assumption that there is black and white when it comes to right and wrong. There is no gray in the middle. That's why the finale, where he lets everybody go because everybody murdered this really bad guy who did a terrible thing that deeply affected every single one of them, he lets them go because he realizes sometimes, not all the times, and certainly not the majority of the times, but sometimes there is no black and white. In the second film, it's thematically relevant to love. I mean, it's a lover's triangle at the center of the film, but he says something in there about the idea of like love makes you happy, but it takes away your rational sense. And that's something that Hercule has gotten rid of ever since he lost his love, Catherine. I am so good at this accent. I don't know if you can tell. So good. But yeah, he gives up love. He gives up the idea of love, and the film challenges that. Is it even worth it? But at the end of the film, he actually shaves his mustache, revealing the scar on his face that's supposed to kind of symbolize, what he's been covering up, right? It's supposed to symbolize his deep down, inhibitions to love, right? The words are not coming to me right now, but I think you might understand what I'm saying. And so the end of the film actually sees him shave that mustache off, and he's going and hanging out in the lounge where this woman that he was interested in was at. And that's supposed to show that, he's letting himself be vulnerable again. He's letting himself try to feel. Well, we pick up here about 10 years later, and his mustache has grown back. We don't hear anything about that love. World War II has happened. He has the shakes from it. He is clearly mentally kind of checked out from being present in his own life, let alone anybody else's. The movie drives this point home by the doctor character also having a sort of PTSD, situation going on. And I think the film handles the idea of seeing too much and not knowing how to continue. I think it handles it pretty well. It's respectful, but also in a way that serves character. In the first two films, Hercule believed in God. He believed in divine justice, right and wrong, all that stuff. In this one, he flat out denies that God exists. He says, look, what I've seen, clearly God does not exist. And he even says, he's like, I would love for ghosts to be real, because if ghosts are real, a soul is real. And if a soul is real, God created that soul. And that means that, hey, there's a God, hallelujah. But he just simply can't because of what he's seen. So the whole film is challenging this idea of this divinely inspired good or bad. Is there a God? Is there a soul? Is there anything beyond this life, this terrible, evil infested life? And well, the film challenges that because, it's a haunting in Venice. There are ghosts everywhere. He walks away from it essentially not outright stating that he believes in God again, but simply saying that he has to live with his ghosts. And I think that's pretty powerful for anybody who's gone through something traumatic like that. You can't forget that. You simply have to keep living with it. That, or, you don't live anymore. I mean, those are the only two options. And so the problem that I kind of have with this is not necessarily in the execution of this, because I don't really think that the point of these movies is this character arc and all this, but clearly the theme is important to the murder case. But I just feel like I said earlier, it goes 80%, but not the full way. Maybe I can do one of my excessive amount of opinions on how I would try to fix this series going into the fourth one to try to have a complete character arc, but I don't know. We'll see. Let me know if you want me to do that. Or if not, I'll just shut up and never talk about it again. I'm fine with that too. I have plenty of other opinions. Don't shut up.
Excuse me, Kyle. It is my turn now. Hello, BFDers, and welcome to Burger Fondue. Yeah. Going into this movie, I did not know anything. Do you remember when Kyle said this?
I forgot that this movie was going to come out until about a week or so ago.
Yeah, that was me about A Haunting in Venice. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know that it was a sequel to A Murder on the Orient Express or A Death on the Nile, both of which I haven't seen, so I don't know how similar they are to each other. So I'm going to be reviewing this based just on this film that I've seen in this trilogy, I guess you could call it. That being said, I thoroughly enjoyed this film. Going in, I was under the impression that this was going to be a horror film. And there are definitely elements of horror in this film, but as Hercule Poirot states so hilariously, it is a whodunit. And that whodunit line is really why I think this film shines. Yes, it is a mystery thriller, but those moments of lightheartedness really balance the film out. The few jokes here and there really bring out the humanity in Venice. Without them, it still would have been a solid film, but because they are present, I feel as this elevates the film. Surprisingly, there wasn't any tonal clashing. The humor flowed seamlessly into the more ominous parts of the film. I also thought the question that was posed here in the film was a dichotomous line to toe. Poirot is a man of logic, of reason, and yet he is here in a building that is haunted, that people believe is haunted. The medium Miss Reynolds fakes the first part of the seance that occurs, as Poirot discovers, but then is immediately possessed by the murder victim. Poirot is hearing things and seeing things, and during the climax of the film, it's revealed that he's just been poisoned this entire time. Another murder marked with the child's vendetta happens impossibly, but it's revealed that there's a liar amidst the group. All of these strands lead us to believe in the supernatural, the impossible, but then are revealed to be false. But at the end of the film, Poirot sees the original murder victim, her ghost, pull her killer into the water, into the deep, dark depths of the Venice Canal, and her soul is at peace. But did Poirot really saw that? Was it a ghost? Who knows if that was real? The cinematography was fun. There were a lot of Dutch angles and off-center framing. There were moments of intense dramatic lighting that were isolating to some characters. Editing was on point, balancing the slower moments and the more intense moments perfectly. My favorite sequence that involved heavy editing was the string of questioning that Poirot did. For the most part, all of these were isolated individual moments where he would question these people and things would get intense, but it would just be them. Then we get to the two assistants and we do their individual questioning, but as time went on, There would be these very quick cuts back and forth between the two, questioning harder and harder until not only did they break, but he broke because of the poisoning. And then we come to a screeching halt. That is suspense. And A Haunting in Venice does that so well. One last thing before I turn it over. There are a lot of characters in this film, but all of them felt unique. All of them had different motives, alibis, reasons that they were at the house in the first place. And the combination of everything that each of these people had to offer made the world feel so tangible. And who knew that the little kid would be the one that really brought everybody there together. Back to Kyle.
All in all, this movie's really good. Like, again, it scratches that base itch that you have to find out a mystery, to uncover the truth, right? And, you know, everybody's just hardwired to know why things happen. And that, paired with the visual, paired with the added semi-character arc that's not super focused on, but is definitely there, it's just an enjoyable experience. And I think that you guys would really enjoy it. If you guys happen to agree with any of our opinions on movies, then you'll probably enjoy this movie. And this is where I come to you guys, the BFD Nation. I think it is important to go see films that are not part of a cinematic universe. I know this is a sequel. I do not believe it's the same thing because we have not had an offshoot on some random character yet, so I would not call it a cinematic universe. It's just a sequel, and I know that it's based off of IP before, like Agatha Christie's novels. I understand that. But I think it is important to go see movies that are not $300 million to make. One of the worst things happening in cinema right now, and it's been happening for a while now, is that only massive budget movies and indie movies get made. You know what I mean? Not widely, and certainly not as often as the $300+ million movies that are released. And I think it's important to go see these, even if you don't necessarily like whodunits. I think first of all, I think it's a good watch, but secondly, I think it's okay to tell the studio, hey, we like some of the smaller budget stuff that tells a pretty concise story that we can walk away at the end and go, wow, I really enjoyed that. You know, I was taking on an emotion through there. I really wanted to think about the movie while I was there, and I had a good time. Good job. That's perfectly fine. The point being, this is a call to action. I want us to find these movies that are maybe not necessarily mass appeal movies, but are movies that we want to see more of, more experimentation, because studios aren't going to get involved so much in the $10 to $100 million movies. Not as involved as they will get in a $300+ million movie. So what we're seeing in that budget range of $10 million to $100 million, it's getting released nationally in theaters. I mean, what we're seeing in there is more director-centered movies, more writer-centered movies, whichever one. And that's a good thing. We need more of that. We don't need our content to tell us these are emotions we should be feeling. We need content that has us experience these emotions as though we are actual human beings. And that's something I can say without a doubt A Haunting in Venice absolutely does. Hey, well done, Kenneth Bragna, whatever your name is. You know who you are. You did a good job. Hey, go check out these other movies that are down below me or to my side. Probably to my side, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. They're to my side. And with that, I've been Kyle, and I still am. And thank you for watching. Bye!